This is the Samsung Galaxy A42 5G, and it's what I like to call a cheap but not too cheap phone. At this price you get impressive performance, a humongous battery, and a pretty okay design, all at the starting price of around $399. I'm honestly impressed by it, but I'll show you why in a bit. Hi guys, I'm Vic from PhoneArena with a review of the Samsung Galaxy A42 5G. So, for the price of around 110 gallons of gas, you get a pretty neat design. It's all plastic, which I should add because the back looks like glass until you get a feel for it. But I'll hand it to Samsung. It looks nice with its 4-section rainbow refractions, although it is a fingerprint magnet. Like, you can't really touch it without leaving something behind, and it scratches too easily. Trust me on that. In any case, you might also enjoy seeing my face in the glossy back from time to time, but what you might not enjoy is the subtle flex I found it has. It's certainly not bad, but it's worth to note. Also, being a more budget-friendly option, it has a headphone jack and a microSD card slot at the expensively dedicated SIM slot. I kind of like the under-display fingerprint scanner too, since it rarely produced a misread, so it's kind of nice. But maybe what I enjoyed the least, besides the glossy back, was probably the teeny tiny power and volume buttons. Like, they're so slim and you can barely feel them at the same time. At least, they have an audible click though, which I guess kind of offsets that a bit. So if we stop looking at my face reflecting on the back for a moment though, we'll notice the rather tall 6.6-inch AMOLED display, which boasts astonishing colors, but sadly at a lower resolution of 720 by 1600 pixels. You won't really find watching Netflix and the like enjoyable here, but at least it covers almost the whole front, the exclusion being the notch on the top and the bottom chin. The large screen also helps in making itself feel less sharp, but there is a surprise benefit to this, since the Snapdragon 750G powering this device needs to work less, thanks once again to the low resolution display. And this is mainly what impressed me when I first grabbed this device, or at least when I started using it. I played Genshin Impact at medium, and I found it to do even better than the A52 5G, which comes with the same SoC. This is probably due to the fact that the phone's resolution is pretty low, but it's still impressive. If you're interested in specifics, I got a score of around 656 points in the single core and around 2007 points in the multi-core, benchmark in Geekbench 5, whereas the A52 5G scored around 421 points on a single core and around 1607 points multi-core. So you can definitely see the difference even in processing, which is pretty interesting. It should do you good in most other situations too, be it in gaming, watching YouTube, or just browsing the web in general. But coming back to the display, since I got sidetracked a bit, it's pretty nice and decently bright for outdoor use, and also decently dim if you plan to not squint, the other half of your day. Just don't expect brilliant details coming off of it, since you can easily see the pixels, like when you read the text or something of the sort. The battery supplied here is around 5000 mAh and it lasts quite a lot, like 2 days worth of a lot. Unless you're like me and you don't really stop browsing Reddit, in which case you can expect around a day's worth of use. When I did my review of the A12, I noticed that it also had a bit of play in the plastic back, like when you press on it. And I'm starting to wonder if the engineers and designers over at Samsung are indeed making that much space for the extra battery they're putting inside their phones. But still, you'd think that given the benefits so far that the camera would fare significantly worse, but actually no. It did more than I expected. Shots came out a tad bit vivid, but the sharpness was on point. Dynamic range was also executed down to Samsung standards, which means that it was very good. Selfies were also decently sharp, but I would recommend you turn off face enhancements since they are on by default. At least I'm not a fan of them, so pick and choose. Night mode was also pretty okay at this price point. Dark spots were well lifted and colors were relatively accurate, but sharpness would drop significantly. But I guess, that's a small price to pay if you want some night scenery without using a tripod. Of course, you also have your gimmick macro camera, which does okay, but is totally unnecessary. And most importantly, you get an ultra-wide sensor, which is actually more than good enough. There isn't too much sharpness to it, and its dynamic range is a bit worse, and there's a bit of distortion, but it tends to correct good. But its colors are maybe a bit more true to life than the main camera, which is kind of interesting. At least, I found it interesting. The video quality was actually pretty nice at 4K, but stabilization was a bit of a disappointment. You get only electronic stabilization and only at 1080p or lower. It's not that I hate electronic stabilization, but it does do a worse job than optical stabilization in the evening. right a bit around the dusk here when the sun isn't scorching me too much. You can see the camera is doing actually pretty okay. If we just switch to the ultra wide here, that also seems to be doing actually pretty nicely. And yeah, but if you kind of look a bit around, you'll see that it seems a bit more blurry, not too sharp, because of the electronic stabilization, as I mentioned earlier, which kind of, doesn't do this video any favors when it's kind of more dark. And since it's summer outside, it's not really an option for me to... Got your fan. And since it's summer outside, it's really not an option for me to lie under the scorching sun while I take a couple of videos. The front-facing camera does pretty decent videos too, although it does tend to overexpose the skies a bit. Otherwise, the footage comes out pretty clean and the mics sound pretty good. And if you're wondering about where the heck is your portrait mode, for some reason, it's named Live Focus here. I don't know why, but it does a good job as expected, but still, they could have just named it Portrait Mode instead of Live Focus. But of course, there is a substantial bit of difference here. When you use Live Focus, it actually shows you the blurred background before even taking the photo, while I've noticed that in most portrait modes on some other phones, it doesn't really show you the background blur until it does the process. But back to the Live Focus at hand, there is nice object separation and there isn't too much of a sharpness drop. Of course, that changes when dusk approaches, but I'm willing to forgive that since most other phones will have an issue with that too. So then, if you ask me, this has been quite fun, much like staring at the phone's back for, half an hour. But is it a good device? Honestly, yes. But there are some other options at this price. Like, the Pixel 4a is around the same price and has better performance and a surely better display. Or you might be more into Apple. The iPhone SE has a much worse display and battery, but it sure flies through tasks and it crushes the A42 in games. But still, if you're in the need of 5G at a more affordable price, you don't really watch too many videos and you need a bigger battery, this phone is probably for you. Or maybe you want something that games a bit more than the other similar options from Samsung. Because I can assure you that the A42 does better than its more expensive bigger bro, the A52. At least as we saw in this course and as I tried gaming. Sure, it does have a far worse screen, sharpness-wise, but it also has quite a good camera for general use and its battery is pretty huge. It's pretty decent is what it is, but maybe I'm missing something, If that's the case, let me know down in the comments below. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys some other time.